Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Club Baroness. This will be episode 9. We're going to have a couple of new guests for you today, and I will be hosting it here with Guinan.
Yep, we've got here our friend Goatrix, previous
Hello.
contender in the tag tournament and all-around troll. Monkey 20,051. You might have seen him around. He hangs out around Sign of Saints, plays some tournaments. Doesn't ever show up, but he's a good dude. And Nathan O, also known as the progenitor of the tag tournament.
Greetings.
And these folks are going to talk about...
You know, actually, can I just say something real quick here at the start? I have always assumed that Monkey's number was done with just the digits, so 20051, because I've always assumed it was an area code.
It could be. It sure could be.
It's not an area code. I got the account in 2005, and then you couldn't put 2005. Someone already had it, so I added a 1. Boom.
We now have
051.
real talk.
Mysteries solved.
We're all 15 once.
On that note...
All right, then. Carry on.
All right. So we're going to talk about today our tag tournament and 1v1 tournament. Both of them are going into the final stretch. As of now, we have 2 semifinal matches, followed by a finals in the 1v1 tournament. This is single elimination, so 3 remaining sets. And in the tag tournament, we have 1 set in the loser's bracket, followed by the grand finals. So we're getting down to the end of this. I'm going to start by talking about the 1v1 stuff. But before I do,
You said you wanted to end with the 1v1 and talk about the tag first.
You're right, tag stuff. We're going to talk about tag.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead I'll take over for the tag tournament here. So one of the parts I wanted to start off before we really dig into any of the matches and that is we haven't had Nathan on here for a little while now. And so I wanted to just ask Nathan some questions and kind of have a discussion between you guys about playoffs in general. What surprises, trends, insights that you guys have had.
Excellent. Is that what you?
So
was that? A
yeah,
question?
sorry, I was going to let you.
Do
I was
the
going to
ball
see
now?
if you had. Yes, the ball is yours. Sorry.
You know, let me start actually with the prizes. I actually think that's a great question.
There's prizes?
And I have been thinking about it, and I haven't really been talking about it with anybody. But, you know, given that we now know, you know, 1 of 3 teams is going to win this. It's down to Gaignan and Tokyo, Bregan and PDDCM, which I should probably say Aldavia if I'm going to do Tokyo, I guess, and the Zexus Zanxus team. So, you know, with that smaller field, we can start kind of drilling down to what might be a good, you know, top place finish. And I wondered whether enough people would be interested in like a custom play mat, possibly, from like for a tabletop card game, depending on which team won. And other stuff like that. Like I want something that would be kind of cool and unique and permanent and like receivable. Do you know what I mean? Like you know, we did back in the day. I used to do like $50 gift cards on Amazon, that kind of stuff. And it's just a very generic, like nothing prize that like just you know gets spent and is gone. I kind of like the idea of having some kind of like tangible thing. Like a, you know, and that could also be like a T-shirt or a, you know, a mug, that kind of crap. But like, I just think it would be cool to have some kind of like a championship item that could then be received by the 2 winning players. So that's kind of where my head's been in terms of prize, you know, awards. What was the other question?
Surprises, trends, things that you've noticed since playoffs began, since the Swiss.
Yeah. So, well, I think that by far the biggest difference between this tournament and the tournaments we used to have back in like 2008, 2009 is that everything's being recorded. And so there's just a vast pool of research that can be done, like in terms of like how people play together, the tendencies they have, the types of builds they're bringing, what works against people, what doesn't, skill density. I frankly feel as though the meta in the tag tournament right now, in terms of like the builds and also play styles, is dramatically more, not just sophisticated, but sort of like drilled down. You know, like it really is it's much more difficult to step in, I think. Well, as evidenced by my my experience with the Wolf, playing against some of the higher ranked teams. I mean, it's really, really tough competition. And if you don't come with a hard, clear plan in mind for how you're going to win the game, I think that, even once we got down to the final 8, we really saw some brutal dismantlings, in spite of the fact that every team in there was, experienced and skilled. So I think that's the big thing, is that it feels a little more cutthroat, I think, than it used to, which is great. Like, I think that's actually a really cool thing, and I think a neat selling point for the, for people who are working their way up, is that there does exist this sort of like, top flight, skill level that perhaps was not quite around so much. I wonder if we were able to teleport forward, let's say like Doom and Ghost, from like, I don't know, June 2008, and insert them into today's tournament, I really do think they would struggle.
Well, let's turn that into a conversation topic for all three of you here. Monkey, what would you think about, we'll use that as an example then, if Doom and Ghost from back in the day were to show up in this tournament, how do you think they would do?
They would get stomped. I mean, I remember a lot of the tag team tournament stuff back in the day. It was, you knew what people's arsenals were just because people didn't change them a bunch. The meta that's happening in this tournament is most of the people are changing play styles between games. Look at it. It actually probably hurt Xanxus and Zexus when they played Gaignan and Reborn again, or Gaignan and I'm just gonna call him Tokyo again, and because they changed up their playstyle, which is usually not what they do. They just stick to what they're good at, and they tried to play some stuff they weren't used to, and it hurt them in the end. But yeah, I think that everyone would figure out Ghost and Doom pretty easily, and they would be out.
Well, what about you, Cody? Goatrix, do you revere the old gods? Do you still walk the old ways, or what do you think?
Well, I think they'd honestly do actually a little better in the tournament than they did because honestly, Ghost and Multitude, while they're a decent team together, they weren't ever as good as Doom and Ghost were together, and the same can be said for Doom and his existing partner Ronin. I mean, to be fair, Doom's in the past tournaments, he carried a lot of players to finals that probably wouldn't have got that far with him. Him and Scorpion took a tournament, him and Ghost, he used to play with Bam Bam. Like, realistically, if you gave Doom I think a better partner, he wouldn't have had some of the losses that he did have. Not necessarily guaranteed, but he would have performed better. I mean, some of the rounds it looked like he just phoned it in.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're also discussing, not just like Doom as a person, but like the players of old. Doom then versus Doom now.
I still think he'd perform better. I think part of it was he just didn't have the strongest level partner that he could have picked for this tournament, and I think that did hurt him in the end. I think he still would have performed very well.
Do you guys have anything else you notice that's different from now versus back in the old days?
I think one trend I've noticed is, and again, this observation especially applies to me and the Wolf, but I think that it was generally the case throughout the tournament, is I felt as though some of the sort of targeted snark stuff, with like Diabolic Trick being the classic example, but all of those things were generally less effective. And I think, again, that comes down to just a meta shift where everything's so much more aggressive. People are starting so much more quickly that you simply don't have that window to grab a couple early or to knock out a key skill in the mid game. And generally, you're not getting to the type of stable end game situation that allows you to just, take people out. But ironically, we are, well, or I should say coincidentally, we are actually seeing the use of that skill in the 1v1 tournament that we're going to talk about later. So it's not as if those skills have become useless, but I think that they're a little less effective in tag play than they once were.
What about you guys? Monkey, Goatrix, anything else you've noticed?
I feel like tag plays a lot faster now than it used to be. I think that there used to be a lot more setup arsenals, a lot more methodical builds, and now it's just kind of quick, and whoever can jump on one guy quicker seems to usually have the upper hand.
I'm gonna kind of agree with that. It just feels like with too many of like the hang arsenals, the heavy erase. I mean, there are points where single skills flat out kill some of those skills dead in the water. And how much time do you want? And how much of your arsenal do you want to devote to trying to have like an answer to it? It's like, do I really want to have to shove in like 3 or 4 different weird ice skills to try to freeze somebody that's got an orb so I can erase them, or do I just want to kill them? So I kind of agree with that sentiment.
Yeah, I think I've noticed that as well. And talking about changes that we've seen in the meta, let's talk about from the beginning of the re-release to now. Because at least for me, one of the things I mainly noticed was, before it was all blazing all day right at the release. It seemed like everybody was on the blazing train. What have you guys noticed change from then to now?
Well, there's that ubiquitous nature faith build that there are, a number of variations on, but it does feel as though that's sort of like the dominant sort of default build that people bring, at least with respect to tag.
Ice Sword is killing people all day, every day, no matter who you are.
Yeah. I guess it all depends. Certain levels, yeah, Ice Sword is definitely champ. We see more on Panorama, obviously. We've seen a lot of Ricochet Laser. Now everyone has to have one. A lot more Agonies of Death have shown up. Gesundheit, whoever did that. I noticed that it seems like things like Memory of Battle and the Bravery skills come and go. For some reason, Bravery seems to be a big favorite on levels like Refinery, which I find kind of weird considering some of the angles of that level, but it seems to be very popular there. But yeah, it seems like I don't know. I still think the Blazing's around pretty strong, but just I don't know. Maybe it's just finally getting shut down because obviously with all the talk about quicker arsenals coming to play, all it takes is a couple hits and cool, you're out of that.
It does, but conversely, the thing that's kind of unique about Blazing is that it does get you set up pretty much right away. I mean, if you have 2 auras, you come out with a Blazing Bullet, and you get that extra little bit of tracking, that little tiny bit of extra tracking over just regular old, bullet. The other bullet skills don't track quite as well.
Oh, they're not as fast either.
They're not as fast either, and yeah, I mean, and especially, like the Blazing Sword, I think it's the same hitbox just about as Flame Sword, right? So you're talking about, a pretty massive, set of starting skills that you can get almost always off the bat. And even if you're walking out, like let's say, okay, you come back to your base at 14 health because that's when you get knocked out of it. But a lot of times you've done 12, 15, 20 points of damage.
Yeah, the trade-off is definitely that you're getting a lot of value out of it, even though you may only have it for like 20 seconds of the match.
Yeah, I would like to talk a little bit about Ricochet Laser. What was that?
Oh, I was just going to say the other meta difference I've noticed in tag team is it seems like there's a lot more players willing to use skills or get hit more often and sacrifice health because of the whole pickup. And I don't remember that being as big of a thing back in the day either, or even whenever the game kind of first came out, people were always kind of, you don't see them using trance that much. They'd rather use Tiger Strength. But now it's like people are willing to use trance, people are willing to use Bloody Ritual. They're willing to take that health loss and just be like, okay, I'm going to come back even with less health. It'll be all right.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, probably most clearly represented in that Gagnon deck with the, the infinite health cycling one.
Yeah, the
which
Bloody
we haven't
Ritual
really seen pick up that much. Yeah, exactly. Bloody Ritual and Wings of Hope, I think it was, right? Which is a chain. But I did want to talk a little bit about Ricochet Laser. I do feel as though it's a little bit of a degenerate setup. We see it almost any game in Panorama is going to have at least one person using it, and it is fairly overwhelming. And I think that, I can't speak for anyone else. For my purposes, when I'm building for a Panorama game, I'm always thinking in terms of what's my answer to that, and it's usually going to be Flash Hole, but you have to have some kind of a resolution to that skill, which is a little bit unfortunate because you don't like any one skill to dominate a whole level like that.
Yeah. I think that's something I've definitely noticed as well. It's something you absolutely have to prepare for. You either have to bring it or be ready for it or have a way to counter for it.
Yeah.
It's really overwhelming on Panorama for sure.
I have,
And I
if
don't
you
think that was
mind-
not the case in the old days, in my mind.
Go ahead, Guinan.
I didn't want to interrupt too much on this conversation, but I actually was thinking about this recently, and I actually like it in the meta, because without Ricochet Laser, the most powerful skills on Panorama would be Fortress of Iron, Angel's Wing, and Iron Skin. 100% the most powerful skills in the game. But because of Ricochet Laser, you have to have more answers than that. So I kind of like that it adds two things you need to deal with. Whether it's perfect or not, we can make all the arguments.
That's true, and it does. I mean, you can deal with it to a degree, right? I mean, we all know the tricks about like the timing of it coming in. I mean, if you have the time and the space to be able to like kind of do the little Ricochet Laser dance you have to do to dodge the goddamn things. I mean, it is possible to do, but it definitely yeah. I guess you're right. I guess it could leave a worse thing behind because the fact is it's such a limited level. I mean, pretty much all laser skills are off the table immediately. Any long range skills, I should say, outside possibly of that one like something that goes through walls, perhaps like Gator Rowan. But I really don't think.
I was gonna say I've honestly felt like people are enjoying and bringing out different stuff at Panorama than I ever remember. In the old tournaments, Panorama was always banned. Like you were gonna almost never play Panorama. No one liked the map, and I feel like this time around with Phantom Dust, people are finding different things at Panorama. It still may not be people's favorite, but no one's. Look at all the 1v1 and tag team. Like almost no one's banning the map anymore. We're banning highway and city. People don't like the long range stuff that is wide open.
I can tell you guys. I can give you guys a little window into mine and Wolf's opinion on Panorama. He generally runs Ricochet. I typically run the Sword and Mine build. Our whole discussion around whether or not to ban Panorama centered around whether we felt like we were significantly better than or significantly worse than our opponent. If it was evenly matched, we were pretty much indifferent to it and we left it. But it can be such a high variance level that if we were pretty confident we were better than our opponents, we would not want to ban. And if we were better than or if we were worse than our opponent, we would absolutely want to play it. Right, so that was really our whole thinking on that level.
Yeah, I think Panorama has definitely been pretty.
I had that word-for-word conversation with
very.
Honestly.
Yeah,
we
had similar
the same thought.
Yeah, verbatim.
Yeah,
really. Go ahead, go.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's a tough level to like really want to spend your ban on because in a way you kind of already know what to expect Arsenal-wise in that stage, but at the same time it's like, do you really feel it's really gonna cause you that much of a problem? Whereas like maps like City, Refinery, Lane, Sign, all those have all sorts of other weird variables to take into account. That like, do I really want to play against those instead and spend my ban there? Whereas Panorama, oh look, it's lasers.
Yeah, Silver and I were banning Panorama until we came up with that reduced infantry deck, and then we're like, all right, we'll just stomp everyone out with this instead.
So I guess we'll move on from Panorama a little bit, and before we get into the actual matches that are happening in the tag tournament or what's left, I was going to ask, have any of you had something in the playoff portion of the tag tournament that's really surprised you? Nathan?
Boy, that's a good question. I guess I would say. Well, let me. Again, I don't want to give too much of a teaser for what we're going to be talking about later, but given the 1v1 that Gaignon and Xanxus played, which is a truly epic series, I'm sure we're going to be spending a good chunk of time on. It's clear that those two players in particular have got a real mastery of the game. And in general, watching Xexus and Xanxus, just their mechanical play, and in the case of Gaignon and Tokyo, more the mechanics and the counter building, that's been a surprise. And I really think that in particular, Gaignon's counter building has been something that we really haven't seen. I think, Wolf and I strove for that back in the day, successfully and less successfully recently, where we would be, very carefully considering who we were playing against and really trying to, fine tune what we were going to be bringing to go against that. But I don't think we were ever as far ahead of the other builds as Gaignu and Tokyo have been in this recent tournament. So that's one thing I've noticed for sure. I guess the shorter way of saying is I don't think we've seen as complete a team as that in a previous tournament. We've had dominant skill teams, we've had dominant build teams, we've had different types of teams win tournaments. I don't feel like we've seen one that was kind of like as well-rounded as those two guys have been in a tournament. And of course, they have lost a series too, so it's not like they've been perfect even, which again speaks to the level of competition here. So that, I guess that would be my first observation about the current tournament, and I should say post-cut.
What about you, Monkey?
The biggest thing to me is that surprise is that you and PD can 3-0 everyone in the tournament except for the top two teams.
Hey,
we haven't played Zexus and Zexus yet.
Okay, I didn't know if
me.
you guys had played them yet. All right.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Well,
ahead.
you haven't played the other top two teams, so just the fact that you guys have been able to 3-0 everyone in, for the most part, there's usually only one, if any, even competitive games in that 3-0. It's domination, but yet, like I said, you've hit those matches where you've even went up 2-0 on Gaignu and Tokyo, but then you just couldn't finish it out because once again they do have some master game planning and technical planning and reversing your thing that you do best. They are really good at that, and it's why they've made it so far, obviously, without taking very many losses in games, let alone losing a series. So that's to me been the biggest surprise, is how dominant you guys have been against most of the other teams.
What about you, Cody, Goatrix?
For me, I just think it's nice that this time around, there's at least 3 or 4 teams that we can talk about that all feel like really good, strong, like level competitors for like gonna win the tournament. Versus in the past, it was like, oh, who did Doom enter with? He's gonna win. And we were just waiting for that to be the inevitable outcome, and it was going to happen without challenge. Like all these teams, they're like a lot of the top teams in this tournament. There's been a lot of back and forth with some of them, counterplay, play, so on and so forth. And it's nice to see that, and that's what I think would be healthiest for the game going forward, is an open environment where people don't feel like the decision's made like a month in advance when teams are being chosen, as opposed to like in the past where it's like pretty much there was one dominant team and everyone else was there just to lose to them.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, is there anything else anybody would like to cover just in general about the playoffs of the tag tournament before we move on?
Yeah, I guess actually I should mention, obviously I had trashed you and PDD quite a bit during the pre-cut portion of the tour when I was still alive. I think it is worth noting that the starts you guys have, and certainly, Wolf and I got a good taste of it ourselves, and then we've watched you do it to 2 subsequent teams. It is impressive, and I think unlike anything else I'm seeing anywhere in the videos, in terms of 55-second long panorama games, for example. It's just not something you see other places for the most part.
Who did we have a 55-second panorama game against?
I don't know if it was quite that short. I had difficulty finding it.
Wasn't it Mesrath and Mimic?
Yeah,
it was pretty quick, but it wasn't 55 seconds. But it was at least less than 2 minutes.
It was super fast. No, it's his second most recent.
I think it might have actually been versus Doom. Really fast one versus Doom.
Yeah,
that was quick.
Yeah. It was lightning fast. I mean, it truly, it may well be in that territory of a minute long. Which, speaks to, phenomenal quick setup and, strong follow through. It takes, I think, a lot of discipline to be able to shut a team down that quickly if they know what they're doing.
Yeah. I guess we'll go ahead and we'll move on then. The last bit for the tag tournament, at least for now, we'll come back around to talk about it a little bit more after the 1v1 as well. But we'll cover the match that has gone down and then the match that's coming up. So the one that went down was myself and PDDCM versus Mimic and Mesrath. And Mikey, would you like to take lead on that one?
Yeah, I was a caster for that match, and the first match on Palace, pretty good. There's lots of kills. You guys almost had it off of the first body pickup, but they ended up picking up the other one right in time, and then there was just some back and forth. You had that spawn behind the tree, and once again, like Nathan said, you guys had just quick starts, and I think you ended up having like 2 boost mines and a relearn right at the beginning. Now you guys didn't get all those boost mines because of jumping and stuff like that, but you still had them in your hand to start. And then the other 2 matches that you guys played against them, it was just quick and dominant. Like I said, the quicker tag teams right now, especially if you can't hang past, if you can't hold up for the first couple minutes of the quick onslaught, it's just hard to recover or to even get any offense whatsoever sometimes.
Yeah. How about some of your thoughts, Goatrix, on that series?
That was an ass whooping. Like, there's not much more. There's not much more else to say to it. So, fun fact: Bregan started the night before the recording by sending me a message saying, "Yeah, we got stomped." I'm like, "Oh, really? Huh?" Then I watched the match. And I'm like, "You filthy liar."
He did that to me recently too, with another thing that we'll get to later.
Yeah, he thought it was real funny, and then I watched the match, and I was like, "Oh my god, no, it wasn't." I mean, that was pretty brutal. Like, the Palace game was really close, but then every other map was like, "Oh my god, oh god." That's what I mean, because he did the same thing to me in Silent, and I was like, "Well, not a lot to say there. Thanks for adding extra suspense." Because I kind of wanted to see how bad he actually got beat. Because I'm like, why does that not sound right? I mean, nothing against Mimic or Mesrath, but I mean,
well, everybody keeps predicting us to lose.
I do want to add one thing though on that match. Mimic and Mesrath, they had played really well this whole tournament. Once again, it just got down to Final Four, and the best teams are going to rise to the top. But they, I think, outperformed by far what a lot of people were saying about them. And I played against them twice in the tournament, and they were both 3-2 and maybe even 3-2-1 matches that were just lots of great gameplay. Lots of they're not gonna bring out weird.
Yeah, they're straightforward.
Janky arsenals. They're going to just come at you with, this is their plan and this is what they're going to run. They were one of the tag teams that I don't think really changed it up much from round to round, even though we didn't have a lot of recorded video of them, just from what I read and what I played them myself. They played a lot of similar type things, but they just did it well into a good...
Yeah, they're a team that I don't think anybody really knew anything about.
Well, one thing that they did tell me, and I don't want to interject too much, but one thing they told me straight up is that was a strategy of theirs going in. They didn't want footage of them. They didn't want people to know what they were doing. They didn't want people to have a read on them. So they did that somewhat intentionally.
Right.
Kind of a smart idea.
Right. So yeah, I just want to definitely give them credit. Not, yes, they got smoked, but like I said, everyone's getting smoked by Bregan and PD, except for Murder
the top two.
And Gaignon. Yeah. And then, okay, you haven't played Zengsis and Zexus yet. We'll see. But the other thing I feel like we should bring up, since some poor choices isn't here, I do want to say, please, someone ban Palace against Bregan. He is undefeated there. You gotta ban it. I don't care if you like it, Zengsis and Zexus. Ban it. Get it out of the way.
You know what? I think now, just because you said that, if Guinan and Bregan play, Guinan is going to absolutely make sure Palace is played, just so he can show him that, yeah, he is going to get beat on Palace.
You read me like a...
Zengsis.
Yep.
Zengsis has also told me that he wants to end my Palace streak. So.
Oh man! Come on, guys!
So are we gonna fight Vegas odds here?
They're already. Yeah, they're already down 1-0 already. Basically, they're playing mind games on themselves at this point.
Although I trust the top two teams to be able, if there's anybody who's going to challenge that record, it's gonna be them. So
Go back and watch the Gaiden in Tokyo against Bregan and PD, and the last time they played. Palace, boom, Bregan and PD.
Yeah, but that's like telling people to go back and watch the first Xexus Gaiden Mastodon matchup and see like, well, it's gonna happen again, right? No.
I'm just saying though,
I know what
they
you're
can
saying.
say that they're not afraid to play him on there, but you should be at this point. At some point, you have to just admit defeat and say, "All right, I'm not gonna play you there."
Well, maybe they'll just look at it this way. This is a charity round.
I'd like to know, just as a side, this is mostly like a dig at myself, or a strategy of mine, whatever you want to call it. Palace or whatever I play first has like a 75% loss or draw record. Regardless, not just Palace, but like if it's Highway first, loss or draw. That's how I roll.
You gotta warm up.
Gainun's not the hottest out of the gate, I guess. Well, I guess the last thing we'll talk about the tag tournament before we move on to the 1v1 and then get to some of the more overarching topics is the upcoming match then. We've been talking around it a little bit, but it'll be Xanxus and Zexus versus myself and PDDCM. Would you like to take that one away, Nathan?
Well, yeah, so, the way these double elimination brackets work is the team that survives the upper bracket, the winner's bracket, essentially gets now to the grand finals needing to lose 2 complete series in order to lose the match. So what you guys are playing for is the opportunity to get at least 1 crack at Gagnun. Yeah, and I mean, essentially, this is functionally round 5. This will be the only match played in this round. And it's going to be, the exact same as all the other ones. It's going to be each of you will pick your band levels. Xanxus and Zexus will be picking theirs first. And, yeah, I mean, I guess as far as...
so they band first?
They do band first in this one, yeah. You guys have not yet played each other. So there's, like, no history on that. Of course, Xanxus and Zexus ended up on top of the pre-cut. So they came into the tournament in first place. I think that no one questions the fact that they're a phenomenal team. And obviously you guys have just been pummeling, that is you, Bregan and Davio, have been pummeling your opponents these past couple of rounds. So you guys have obviously had a pretty good hot streak yourselves. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this match. I'm really looking forward to seeing who it is who gets the honor of a match against Gagnun Mastodon. At least 1 series, probably just 1 series.
So here's what I'd like to add. I think a lot of people are probably going in saying, first of all, they want to see Xanxus and Zexus face Gaiden in Tokyo again. I get that, but I think people are forgetting that you, Bregan and PD, have lost twice already, and this is the comeback story. They made it all the way through the losers bracket. They've got 1 team left to go. They're gonna get to fight them a 3rd time, and hopefully a 4th if they can beat them once.
So we're hoping for a Rocky story where they wheel them both in on wheelchairs.
Right, I just want people to understand that story just as much as the story of Xanxus and Gaiden fighting for top player of the whole game.
Actually, that's
a fun
point.
That's a fun story in and of
first
itself.
round of the bracket. So you guys have been. You're right. You guys have been since the pigtails of the lower bracket. You guys have been fighting all the way through and winning every match and doing so with authority.
We lost very closely to Gaiden, so it's not like we lost to anybody else.
Right. So that's why I'm saying I just want people to understand that there is 2 great potential matchups in the final. It's not just Xanxus and Zexus, steamrolling through people, because, I mean, honestly, it's going to be interesting to see how they play now that they've lost, and now that Xanxus has lost in the 1v1 as well. It's going to be interesting to see if they. It's going to be interesting to see if they're. they're willing to change things up, or they're going to stick to their similar playstyle, because I have a feeling changing it up is going to be difficult on them, just like it was against Guinan in Tokyo. But staying the same against Bregan, who has watched all these matches, has hosted all these matches, is, finding flaws and everything, I think is going to also be maybe not the greatest strategy for him too. So I actually think Xanxus and Zexus might be coming into this a little bit more of the underdog than Bregan and PD, because I think either way they go, it's going to be a little bit difficult for them to get past this matchup.
What are your thoughts, Goatrix?
So right now, personally, for me, since all the other potential underdog teams got eliminated, you're the closest thing left to an underdog team to win this tournament. And obviously, if you win it, trust me, I think most people are really betting money on Zexus or Xanxus or Guinan and Mastodon, as mentioned. So obviously, if anybody's looking for that underdog pick, you're gonna be the one to do it. I think it's going to be an interesting match. I think it's going to go 3-2 for, and I don't really know who I would say is going to win. I mean, because I think it's going to be just basically just you guys just beating the shit out of each other for like 40 minutes. And it's probably going to be, I can't really say that I would give like an advantage to either which one of you, because you both you beat the crap out of people, and like you don't go for too many fancy things, and when you tried you failed, so you won't ever do it again.
Or will we?
Then you'll fail because you're not good at it, so you won't do it. Kind of like when Zexus and Xanxus tried to do some wonky stuff versus Guinan, and it was a terrible mistake, and they should never ever do that. They should also learn how to dodge jackpot.
I actually just watched that whole series.
There is something I'd like to point out here, because it was alluded to earlier. It is worth noting, I think, that Bregan and Eldavio have never won a series in which they've lost a single game. They are 0-3. As soon as they've lost a game, that series is lost. And they're 3-0 in all the wins.
So I'm not going to say who I think will win, but I think that this matchup, whoever wins is going to win 3-0.
Oh, all right. I'm ready to put your money on Bregan and Davio.
All right, I have to chime in on this one. It's going to be a 3-2-1, and my only two words are anti-protagonist.
Uh-huh.
I already know that. Well, I know what that one is.
I'm sorry, can you repeat those two words? I missed that.
I said anime protagonist. I guess okay. Anti-protagonist would be very importantly different, so I apologize. No,
it would be hugely different.
No, it is the anime protagonist in my life. Not that I don't highly respect all players involved, but you gotta get the story.
To come up and...
Dude, okay, you're gonna do it with the power of friendship.
Let's do the actual predictions then. So, Goatrix, you said it was 3-2. You weren't sure who you were going to pick, but bullet to your head.
Bullet to my head, only because I think the other two choices are going to go the opposite of me. I'm going to say Zexus and Xanxus. Nothing personal.
Monkey?
Bregan and PD.
Told you.
Nathan?
I'm also going to go Xanxus, although I think it's going to be a real
you backstabber.
And I practically have to do a coin flip to call that. So I think it could go either way. Really, honestly, I think that Gagnon's prediction of a 6-game series is almost certainly going to be the case.
Can I ask Gagnon one question?
Yeah.
Which team would you rather face in the finals?
Nice, yeah.
So there'll be two different.
Because this is like the ultimate burn.
There's two different types of series here. If I play against Bregan, it's called the Tilt Fest. If I can play against Xanxus, it's a game of chess. So I don't know. Both of those sound extremely fun.
I have a question for Guinan too. So which anime protagonist is Bregan?
Krillin.
Don't say Ash Ketchum.
Oh, he's gonna Destructo Disc his way to the top.
You know what? Actually, I'm going to make a change. I'm going with Bregan, and here's why. I'm going to go with Bregan 3-0 because I don't think he can win it the other way. And I think that I don't. There's a part of me hoping that that's what happens because I do want to see him battle his way all the way through the losers bracket. And so I think because he only wins this series if he goes 3-0, and I don't want that to be in your head if you go like 2-0 and then the third game's getting a little scary and you end up like just barely losing that and then you're lost.
Because then he'll blame you the whole time.
But because I don't want to be like thinking. I don't want to be like rooting one way or the other, or like So I am going to change my prediction to Bregan.
Faithful. Did Guinan say what my anime protagonist was?
You're Krillin.
Yeah, Krillin.
Oh, I'm Krillin. Okay. Sorry, I ended up I spoke over him. I said, please don't say Ash Ketchum.
Yes, you did. But you're going to be Krillin, dude. You don't collect Pokemon.
Krillin.
You throw Destructo discs.
There we go. Okay, well, I think that takes us out of the tag tournament for now. So we're actually going to turn over to the 1v1 tournament if you want to run that part, Guinan.
All right, so let me finish.
Actually, wait a second. Can I ask one more thing? Actually, and this is we have two teams here who are live in the tag tournament.
Right.
Assuming, for instance, that Bregan, that you get through, do you guys think you would be playing the two series back to back, or would you be doing a series and if Bregan were to win, taking a day or two off and then swinging back for another one?
I mean, I guess it would be really dependent. Like, say if we won the first one, I guess it would depend on time constraints. One, if anybody had any time constraints that wouldn't allow them to play the second series back to back, and also a tilt factor. Like, if Guinan or Murder was super tilted afterwards, like I wouldn't want to force them to play it right after taking that loss.
Well, you totally should then. Duh.
Yeah, like I think the winning team, if they're the loser bracket winning team, they should get to choose if they play it back to back or not. Hell yeah.
No, it has to be at the discretion of both teams. We've given a week between each round, so it would have to be both teams agreeing to go on. I was just curious if you guys, what your feelings would be.
From my side, I'm gonna give you like a 90% that will take our time because Murder doesn't get too long. Family and school, work, and a family is a lot.
Sure.
So.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
cool.
going to say time constraints could play a big
curious.
factor there.
Okay, so
on to the 1v1.
So now that I've watched, I actually was only planning on watching one series. We got through like 3 different series. One of those was the Jackpot series. We love you, Xanxus. So let's talk about 1v1 because this has been pretty hype. We just got through the quarterfinals. We had 4 matches. I'm gonna be able to show you probably 1 game or more from each of those. Well, I'm going to start with, we're going to go in order, and then we'll talk about our predictions for the next one. Math versus Some Poor Choices, also known as the Trash Talk series. Nathan, well, what do you think so far about this? Did you get to watch it?
No, I've not had a chance to watch that. Like I said, the only 1v1 I got to watch was that epic series you had with Xanxus.
Well, that'll be
all right. So I watched all the. Yeah, I watched all the 1v1, so I'll talk about this one. So Some Poor Choices and Mr. Math, it was 3-1, I believe, in Math's favor. Some pretty good matches overall. I think their best match was probably the Panorama. There was a lot of just back and forth, faking each other out. Math going for pops, but having to watch out so he didn't get hit by a photon burst that I think Poor Choices picked up on one of his last 4 skills or so that made it really interesting. They're both, pretty good cartwheelers, but a lot of times you saw they were getting hit whenever they just thought they could dodge it easier than maybe than it actually is to dodge. And because they had shields a lot of time and they just weren't using them. So it was just a lot of back and forth. Some pot shots here and there, erased defenses, and then, like I said, I know at least on Panorama, which was one of the better ones, there was popping by Math, and yeah, just a pretty good series between 2, of the stronger cartwheelers in the game.
Yeah.
Did you see that series go?
Yeah.
I'm going to be perfectly honest. I've only managed to watch one 1v1 game series now. It's between Bregan and Shadow Shield. Just 1v1, just being totally fair, isn't really my thing to watch.
It can be slow. It can definitely be.
Yeah, that's been my number one complaint with 1v1. Although the matches that I have seen, it's been nice to see some of the new arsenal changes that people have made, including things like the auto shields, so that way they can get things like guaranteed pops in and stuff like that. So those type of changes have been cool to see. But yeah, like I haven't watched the Xanxus Gaiden match. It was like over an hour. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this.
Right. All right. Bregan, I know you saw this, so give me just a little bit of your insight.
So when I watched Math versus some poor choices, there's definitely a tilt factor, I think, for poor choices as the series went on, because Palace was really brutal. Math 20-0'd him on Palace, and then once he got onto Panorama, after that,
They actually
I know
played
poor, I
Highway
know poor
first.
Okay, excuse me, they played Highway.
And that's
before
the
that, but I
one
know-
win that Poor Choices got, but he got it just at the last second of a Willow hit him, but he got the Vibration Blaster off right before. It was a
Right.
pretty good back and forth as well.
Yeah, the Highway one was really tense, and then I know he was really upset about the Panorama match. He was certain that he'd hit that photon burst, which, speaking of somebody who's played that kind of playstyle as well, like Math was doing there with the diabolical trick, like there's nothing worse than trying to pop somebody out when they have a photon burst, because depending on if you've been hit earlier in the match, 2 to 3 shots from that thing takes you out, and if they have 12 capsules, they've got 12 chances, and all they need to do is have, like, what, a 10% hit rate in order to kill you? 10 to 20% out of the capsules that you gotta pop. Like, it's really hard, and so one thing I do have to give props on is Math being able to pull that off, but I know that Poor Choices was pretty tilted after that, and then the lane match went downhill really fast for him.
Yep.
Yeah. I think this was a good one to watch, though, that we saw. This was Choice's first tournament foray, and so it definitely didn't look that bad for him. But so we have Math going into the semifinals. Did you have another point there before I move on?
The only thing I was going to add is that Poor Choices traditionally isn't much of a 1v1 player, though, right? He's more, whereas Math, I think, does have experience as a 1v1 player from before and after the re-release of the game.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good showing, all things considered.
Yeah, I think
Right. Math is a better 1v1 for sure.
Both consider themselves tag players. I think we talked about Math being a 1v1 player, and I think he has the experience but still prefers tag. He can correct me later if I'm wrong, but yeah. So that's...
Oh, it's definitely an impressive series because we hadn't seen Poor Choices before. He made it to the quarterfinals. I don't think most people would have predicted him out of that group, but he made it out in first place. He was the first seed, and that you can't take that away from him. He performed really well in the group stage. He didn't exactly do poorly in this series either. He's had a solid run in the tournament. You have to give respect to that.
Yeah. Speaking of first seeds versus second seeds and upsets, the next match you may hear about is Shadow Shield versus Bregan.
I'll start that off again. This was a 3-0 Bregan win. I'm not gonna be mean. Shadow Shield went 5-0 in his group, right? But he did at least 4 of those wins off of people not really seeing him play before and not really knowing who he was, and he ran very similar arsenals. Like, we knew this guy was going to run Dance of Death and Psycho Burst. That's what he was going to run, right? Once you watched one of his matches, you watched all of his matches in the group stage. And so going in, now he didn't run that every time this time, but at the same time, you could tell he wasn't comfortable with what he was running. But he kind of was at a disadvantage because if he ran what he was going to run last time, Bregan knew exactly how to stop it, So it's one of those things where you're kind of stuck in a hard place, and that's exactly where he was. He was obviously a little bit overmatched in its matchup for the first match in the knockout stages, and the first match on Palace is a pretty good match, kind of back and forth a little bit, but Shadow does tend to get a lot of his moves either erased or just dodged. And then the other two are just kind of over pretty quickly, and Bregan, being one of the top tier players in the game, shows that he is that top tier player.
Yeah, how much do you think preparation and seeing the other opponent play came into this?
Well, I think
you-
sorry,
Yeah,
I'll
sure,
go
go.
ahead and speak
Yeah,
on
I
this.
forgot you saw this one too.
No, it's
Please
cool.
go on.
No, yeah, no, I saw this one. This one actually looks like a 100% case where previous knowledge of the player completely helped, because Bregan almost always had Guard of Water on hand, so that way he could expect, for the counterattack from Shadow Shield to come out, he had an answer for it. And it looked like in most of his arsenals, they were either almost predominantly like melee skills. It was literally like watching like somebody try to play like PvP Dark Souls instead of PD when he played, because most of his strategy seems to be relying on like sidestepping like melee attacks and then going for that counter hit to get the kill. But when you have things like Guard of Water and stuff, you can shut that down, especially because it's a super expensive attack versus a 2-cost shield. And so it seemed like Bregan had like he knew exactly what he was getting into. What was also weird too is his arsenal choice for City, because it was a 3-school arsenal. He had Turbulence in there, he had an Armoros, and then he had Psycho skills. I was like, what are you bringing?
Psycho.
So it was, yeah, it was really so it was a really slow arsenal. I mean, like, obviously 1v1 at times gives you that time, since you just try to rush. Not everyone can play like Esper and just rush in with Ice Sword, so you get the time to build up, but at the same time that gave Bregan just more time to dig for answers.
Yeah, we saw it played out pretty slow on City. That's the one we're watching in the background right now. And Bregan got to choose the time of the fights, it seemed like. You might agree. And how they played out, even if it was just by his defenses.
Yes,
Yeah,
he
and
definitely controlled every single match, every game.
Yeah, and that's definitely one thing about the 1v1 that's been nice to see, is that obviously there's some skills that you wouldn't see in tag show up here. Like, obviously Guard of Water is good because you're not worried about covering 3 or 4 different angles of attack. You're covering one, and it's a pretty solid cover, especially for like strong melee moves. You could probably, I don't know if anybody's tried this so far in 1v1, but you could probably get away with that with Guardian Angel against some of like the mid-range attacks like Will-O-Wisp and Blaster and things, because you're not going to break it, and the 2 health loss is minuscule if you get the trade for a better hit.
Yeah, I mean, of course, just like some poor choices, this was Shadow Shield's first tournament. This was him showing up kind of off the radar from the beginning, right? And so a 5-0 in the group stage into this, still impressive, even losing to Bregan.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be sad losing to Bregan. Well, I personally would be, but that's just a personal thing. If I was any random person, I wouldn't be sad about that, because he's obviously an excellent player.
Gaignun's always got to insert a little of the ego there. But one thing I did want to talk about Shadow Shield before I have you guys move on from there is I got a lot of respect for the guy, and I'm going to butcher this because I don't remember where the quote's from. I think it's Bruce Lee that said it. He doesn't fear the man who has practiced 1,000 kicks. He fears the man who's practiced one kick 1,000 times, because I really felt like that's how Shadow Shield played. He was very, very patient. Very good at melee counters, like Goatrix was saying, kind of like almost like PvP Dark Souls. He was very, very good at it, and that's what got him through the group stage with a 5-0. And it was something, it gave me anxiety going to the series. I know the series played out pretty one-sided, but it was something that I prepared heavily for, and it was something that I was definitely worried about going into that series. And it was an impressive run, to be sure. I think Shadow Shield really showed up in this tournament, and I'm excited to see more out of him in following tournaments.
All right. So next up, Evolution versus Esper. This one's, of course, exciting because we have some big names and an old tag duo from the tournament, the current tournament, so not that old tag duo.
Is anybody else getting that feedback noise?
There is a feedback noise at the moment.
Whoever just changed their mic needs to switch it back to whatever setting they had it before, because they're getting a lot of feedback.
Thank you. So, Esper, this guy loves 1v1 like some people love women. This is his thing, right? Like, and he's good at it, so it's fine. You know what? I'll give him crap, and he knows that it's respect, because excellent 1v1 player. No one should take him lightly. Evolution, he's played both Trixie Arsenals and Tag, and then 1v1, he brought out the Esper style Blazing. So we see versatility, and we see, you know, a big community members playing against each other, and old tag partners. This is a grudge. This was like one of the biggest grudge matches in the quarterfinals. Who would like to speak first on this one? Goatrix didn't see this one. Monk, you want to take it away?
Sure. So the first match on Palace is probably their best match. It's the only one that Evolution ended up winning. He ended up going down 1-3. Esper played a lot more different arsenals than I think we're used to seeing. While this Palace arsenal is kind of familiar, he did the weird hanging with the Nature's Blessing, and you could just tell he seemed at first a little bit out of his element, and that's maybe why he didn't dominate this one as he normally does in 1v1. And on top of that, there may have been a little bit of underestimating Evolution, possibly. I don't know. The other thing I'd like to say is, because I've played Evolution, and you see it in this Palace match a little bit. I don't know how it was in the room, but it seems like when he has sword skills and he's in your face, the ping is really bad, and you see like the fortress comes out and it looks like it hits it, but he doesn't lose the sword a couple times. So I don't know if that's just him, but that happened with me and him as well. So that could also have been a factor. But Evolution did, like I said, definitely played really well on Palace. He played well on another one of the maps as well. I'm trying to remember exactly which maps they played. I know they played
Panorama was also really close.
Mm-hmm.
It was close, and that was even after a hang by Esper of Reduced
Reduced
Entropy, I
Entropy.
believe. Yep, but the Reincarnation kept Evolution in the game. He just couldn't pull it out at the end. And then he got a taste of that blazing medicine from Esper on City and was dead within a few short minute, maybe 1 minute, maybe, I don't know. He maybe also outthought himself. He knows that Esper is the 1v1. That's his game type, and Evolution maybe isn't as strong there, so he changed to a cartwheeler. I believe on City was the first time he played as a cartwheeler in the series, and you saw he was trying to hang an environment as a cartwheeler, which means he had to keep using the jump lift, and it ended up just taking massive amounts of damage that way. And then on Refinery, he had a gimmick arsenal that I actually played against, and it's funny if it works, but he just didn't time the Judge of Ares into the Judge of Anubis well enough, because Esper grabbed a defense, and then that was basically the end of that match.
Yeah, I'd like to speak on, honestly, one of the most interesting things. This happened in the tag tournament also. Players coming to environmentals and hanging, no less, that previously didn't do either. Like, do you have any opinion on that, Goatrix?
On that, it definitely, like, as easy as it sounds, just slap together reduce entropy or memory lapse, it's something you kind of got to, practice and work on, only because otherwise you won't have the nuanced answers to, somebody, hey, look, I hang my reduced entropy, and I hang my memory lapse, but they have a reincarnation, and they're also having to run friendships, and then they outdamage me. So it's kind of weird when people like that just try to like bring them out of nowhere. It's like not really a hot idea, because like Monkey said, you have a reincarnation, you're in the game.
Yeah, and reincarnation works against a lot of environmentals. In this case, the Nature's
Just
Blessing.
about every one of them.
In this case, Nature's Blessing ends up working, against aggression, which is an interesting thing happening here. But it shows maybe the level of competition, just that people are trying to stretch to whatever means to get some extra wins, even if they're not quite comfortable with it yet. It's kind of cool. Bregan, do you have any last thoughts?
So yeah,
or you can continue, Marky. Sorry.
I just wanted to also say about the hanging. In just casual play, I don't think I ever have a hang arsenal, but yeah, I have built them for the tournaments, because sometimes, especially if you're in tag team, if you're the lower level player, you kind of feel like you have to, which is why it's interesting that Esper, out of the two individuals here, was the one that went with the hanging. Maybe it was to counter Evolution's hang, I don't know, because you did see in the Palace match, Evolution wanted to play environments, but he just wasn't able to use them because of the Nature's Blessing already being out. So maybe it was a counter. That's his counterplay instead of Judgment or Crush. He's like, no, I'm just gonna hang my own. But it was interesting that Esper, as like you said, we're thinking he's the top a top tier player in 1v1, and he was the one that went with the hangs. So
That's actually an interesting
thing-
insight, because did he hang Unison on Refinery? Was that right?
Yeah, he hung a Unison
Yes.
on Refinery. He hung Reduced Entropy on Panorama, and he hung what is it, Nature's Blessing, or
Nature's
with plus
Blessing.
1 health on Palace. And the thing I was going to talk about Esper is I feel like he's actually kind of a Shadow Shield player, just with a different style. He's very much one style, and I feel like he's a player that his skill level went up pretty drastically when he adopted that style. Like, he was never a bad player per se, but he wasn't really a world beater either before that. And once he picked up this blazing ice sword, a lot of fake outs kind of style, he really moved up pretty quickly in my power rankings. And when we saw him divert from that style, even on Palace, where he played that style with a different flavor, like as soon as we saw him divert from that style, we saw a vulnerable Esper 51. And so that's one thing that I think is going to be interesting to see as he goes deeper in this tournament, whether or not that style can float him all the way to the finals or towards a tournament win, or if it's going to get read and countered.
Yeah.
You're
Speaking
getting
of,
a lot of that feedback again.
Oh yeah, it's getting. I'm sorry for listeners if that's a little too loud. It's not super loud on my end, but it'll probably still pick it up.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't tell where it's coming from. I was actually muted while it was going on, but I could actually hear it quite clearly.
I'm gonna probably say it's me. My headset was starting to die, and so when I plugged it in, it's kind of causing this. So I'm trying to. But when I switch it between being muted and not muted, it kind of makes it go away for a while. So I apologize in advance.
Oh. That's
Okay.
All right. So
As long as we're aware of the problem.
we have one more 1v1 match. Speaking of Esper going further in the tournament, the winner of this match is the person who plays him. I'm not going to say a word about this. Bregan, I want you to lead this conversation.
You want me to lead this conversation? I was
Lead.
actually going to hand this one to... Okay, I'll lead the conversation then. Yeah, this was the Gaiden versus Xanxus matchup. I had the pleasure of being able to see it live. It's absolutely fantastic. I only wish that we could get an even better quality video out of it, as the recordings sometimes don't always match what you're able to see in game. But it was absolutely fantastic series, and I know Nathan said he watched that and was a big fan of it, so I was going to actually turn that over to you, Nathan. Gaiden being the eventual winner of the series, why don't you go ahead and break it down for us?
Well, I don't even necessarily want to do I mean, it's a marathon, right? And it's all the best and worst parts of 1v1, which is to say that it's, a lot of very defensive play, a ton of, deke fake attacks, and now auto-trigger defenses apparently are a thing. And yeah, just like really, really tight play. Which is like, just watching it. I usually when I watch these things, I jump around a bit, because you can kind of see when a lull's coming. Flip forward like 40 seconds, and I found myself never doing that. I actually watched like the whole thing start to finish, and like actually, Gagnun mentioned before we started this recording that it would have been cool to see it from the perspective of one of the two players, and I totally agree. I would have loved to have seen like exactly what that, where they were playing with the ranges, where they were between close and medium range, when they were between medium and long range, because it really was a chess match, an exhausting to watch and thrilling chess match. And
Yeah, it was really...
that's pretty much what I got. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, it actually ends on a 6-4 timeout, right?
On a timeout?
The timeout.
It was
I'm not sure I know what
2-1
you
on
mean.
lane, and then we timed out on lane, and then he tied it up on sign to a 2-2, and then Palace in overtime is where I won it 3-2-1.
God, right, yeah.
It was long, but I remember.
I know you also watched this series, Monkey. What are some of your thoughts after watching this series?
So it has the best sword cancels, the best cartwheel dodging, the best attack fake outs, the best timely defenses, the best just counter strategy to counter strategy, which is crazy because Xanxus literally played the same arsenal, I'm pretty sure, all 6 matches. I don't think he changed, but he still just played that arsenal one time, 6 different times, just awesome and pretty well. And then Gaignon also played his 6 different arsenals awesome and well. And if we were auditioning Phantom Dust for Pro E-League, this match would be the match you would show. You would say, this is how it can be amazing. There's so many other matches that end 3-0 and there's domination, and there's so many other matches that could even be 5-6 game series, but there's too much standing and just staring at each other and not having enough back and forth or even strategy. The strategy is, I don't want to lose, but this strategy was, I want to win. Both of them were playing just absolutely out of their minds, and it was just ridiculously fun to watch. I don't have much words besides please go watch this whole hour-long plus video. You will thoroughly enjoy yourself. You will. Almost every match has you on the edge of your seat of, oh my god, how did he win or how did he lose? Like, it is that ridiculous.
So you're saying I should go watch it because I haven't?
Yes,
Definitely.
definitely.
Skip the
right
10
now.
minutes though.
Okay. No, I heard about there's the 10 minutes in the start, but I'll probably watch that because every one of my recorded matches was like 10 minutes of talking. But
So it's not the 10 minutes at the start. Guinan
It's in
popped out
the-
mid-series to swap a skill, but if you check the comments on there, I have it listed what time to skip from and to.
I tried
Okay,
to rejoin that lobby
so-
like 50 times. It was crazy.
Huh.
As a matter of
So-
fact, perhaps the highest compliment, the Wolf actually called me this afternoon and was like, man, have you watched that video? And the Wolf never watches those videos. You know, he got sucked into it, I think, because of the title. But, you know, and his comment was, you can see here, like, just in plain view, the difference between these elite players and, you know, the stuff that we do mechanically in terms of one-on-one play. And you know, I think it's important to point out that with tag team, you know, that 1v1 like dueling skill is not necessarily at the forefront all the time, but it sure is valuable when you can like isolate someone, which isn't that uncommon in tag, and to be able to just, you know, sword fake and auto defend and roll dodge and all the other stuff with such consistency, and to just have such a strong, you know, kind of kinetic awareness of what the power positions are within each of the maps, which I think is really the key to 1v1 play, is like trying to suck people into giving you a very tiny advantage positionally. So that as well, the Wolf also was commenting on how phenomenal a series it was.
I guess I'll add a few things that I saw from it as well. And I know I said, like, if you go back and you listen to the video, I mean, you listened to me talk about this for like an hour and 15 minutes. So I'm not going to dig too much more in. I'll reiterate a few. This series has really turned and shown for me that Xanxus and Guinan is turning into one of my favorite rivalries of Phantom Dust right now. And it's for a couple of reasons, too. It's because I think they're both the best cartwheelers in the game right now. They both belong to two of the top tag teams in the game right now as well. And I think we're going to have this discussion a little bit further down about, you know, top player of the game right now. But they're both got to be in that discussion. And watching them play... you know, I play a jumper, so it's a bit of a different skill set, but watching them play was just absolutely phenomenal. I think out of every tournament we've had so far since the re-release, Cody, you really got to cut that down. That's getting really loud. Sorry. Yeah, I think out of every match we've had in the tournament, that was easily the most exciting for me. Some of the, you know, I feel like some of the matches, you know, I try to force myself a little bit more to be more avid for the viewers and things like that. But there was no need for that in this, even though there was some downtimes. Like, I got hype every single match. I was so into it. It was absolutely fantastic. And if anybody wants to see Phantom Dust played at the highest level, if you want to know, as a new player, a mediocre player, or even one of the other vets, where you have to be if you want to be number one, watch that series. Because if you want to get there, this is the kind of play you have to be able to match. And we get to see it from very opposing styles, too. We get to see the one with the preparation and very different arsenals every time. He doesn't use the same arsenals for anybody. And we get to see the player who used essentially the same deck 6 games in a row. So you get to see it from both spectrums. But if you want to be number one, if you want to be a top player, these are the guys right here that you have to be able to hang with.
So speaking of being a top player, that's a perfect segue into being a top player. We have 2 semifinal matches coming up. Since we're on some of these players, I'm playing Esper next. RebornGaignun versus Esper 51. Some thoughts. We'll start from Nathan since it's been a second. You know these guys.
Yeah, I do. I have to say up front, I am probably the worst one-on-one player in the game. And so my ability to gauge the relative threat levels of people in 1v1. As a matter of fact, when I won that 1v1 game against, who did I beat? I beat the FAQ guy.
Sandal?
Sandal. I had one win against him, and when I got that win, I didn't want to say anything, but I actually got the defeat an opponent in 1v1 achievement.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, I just want I would be very clear.
Good job.
Wow.
So there's my disclosure as to my experience with it. That said, I'm familiar with both these players' play style, and I would say that Esper is a very strong player. I think he brings a really well-rounded skill set and solid builds and experience. He's been around a long time. I think he's facing a real stiff uphill battle in his 1v1 match against Gagnun, and so I would assume that Gagnun is going to be the favorite there. But again, caveat: I am probably the worst 1v1 player that's ever played the game. So
that's a good title to go off of. All right, Goat. You didn't see my match, but you've got a good enough idea. Can you give me a prediction? How do you think this is going to go?
I guess it really depends on what Esper's going to bring to the table versus what you're going to prepare for him, because it sounds like Esper still has some shakiness when he tries to venture outside of the box, outside of what he's normally comfortable with. And if you're comfortable countering it, then it's not going to matter either which way, is it? So I'm going to say I'm going to say Gaignun's the favorite going into this. I think it'll probably be a 3-1 or a 3-2, but I'm going to say Gaignun's going to be favored to win.
Okay. Monkey, you've been avid.
This is going to be.
Go on.
Yeah, this is going to be a good match. I think it's not going to be as great as the Gagnun and Xanxus match. It can't be, but especially because Esper is a jumper, and just those types of matches can only happen because of the dual cartwheelers, or because it would have to be dual jumpers that are both great at dodging to be the same. It can't. The mixed match is just going to be a different type of style, basically. But Esper is pretty good at dodging stuff. He's good at drawing stuff out of people.
Can you mute Goat?
He is kind of one note, as we've stated before. But I still think that he has the talent to hang with Gagnun, but I do think that it is going to be Gagnun who ends up coming out of this matchup to the finals with a 1v1. It's either going to be a 3-1 or a 3-2. But I do think there will be some fun and interesting matches. I do think we could see almost similar to what we saw in this one. Gagnun's going to come out with a bunch of different stuff, and I think that Esper may go back to relying on his reliableness, just like Xanxus did, and may end up running the same thing or similar to the same thing every game.
So I'm going to add my 2 cents in here as well. I think we've talked a lot about how fantastic Gagnun played in the Xanxus series, and obviously Xanxus playing extremely well in that series as well. I think it'll be real interesting for Esper here. Again, I've said before, if he brings anything other than his style, I think that's going to be a weakness for him, even though he thinks that maybe he could get something that Gagnun can't read. But if he does play that style versus Guinan, I gotta say he has a really solid chance because it's the same kind of style that Xanxus played. And while Guinan emerged victorious in that series, it was by no mean margin. Like it was a very close series. So Esper, I think, could have a real chance here as a jumper rather than a cartwheeler. Playing that kind of style might be able to bring out some more fake outs that Guinan may not be prepared for, as he was able to read Xanxus's fake outs a little bit better as they both play cartwheelers. So as much as I would like to say that, Guinan's going to have the preparation and go in and be able to counter him, I think blazing and, the ice and the moves like that aren't as easy to counter as, say, whenever I said Esper's a very Shadow Shield-esque player. I feel like it's a lot harder to counter that than to just bring a Guard of Water for the Psycho Burst, for example. So I think that it's going to be harder to just have a straight counter that Esper's not going to be able to respond to with his style. And I've seen him time and time again when he plays with that solid deck, being able to pull off wins that you wouldn't expect with just the attacks he's bringing. When you look at his arsenals, you just say, well, I mean, a Flash Hold, a Fortress beats what you bring. But he is able to consistently get around those abilities and be able to pick up wins. And so I think it's going to be a very fun series. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. And I think I'm going to go contrarian here and actually give Esper a 3-2-1 victory.
Okay. All right. So speaking of you're playing Math as our last semifinal match. Monkey, why don't you start this off? What do you think's going to happen in this one?
So another great cartwheeler versus jumper matchup. I don't know why. I like to look at those sort of things. I like to difference in play style. Yeah. And actually, I think that Bregan's jumping ability has gotten even better throughout these tournament play. And I think he's going to have a good shot against Math. Math has been showing himself to, in my opinion, to be having harder trouble getting a read on the jumpers than on the cartwheelers, because I think against most of the cartwheelers in the game, he is better at playing a cartwheeler than them, except for maybe Xanxus and Guinan. But against the jumpers, he's just having a hard time reading how to play, how to counter, and he thinks maybe he can roll everything, but maybe he shouldn't be doing that, and maybe he should bring more defenses. And he's just, it's just one of those things where I don't know if he's getting in his head too much, or he maybe is too confident. But it'll be another good matchup. Right now, though, I think Bregan is playing really well in one-on-one, and let's see if maybe Math will ban Palace. But I just, for some reason, am feeling no one's going to ban it. He's just going to keep getting that first easy win on Palace that is basically his map. And then, it's already a head start to the matchup.
It could come down to it.
I mean, keeping the meme alive, Math is a very proud player. I don't think he's going to ban it. And I don't want to say, I think I've got a free win on Palace against him. As much as we joke about it, it is kind of a meme, even though I have a ridiculous win record there. There's nothing really special that I can identify for you that would make me so good at Palace versus any other map. But I don't think he's going to ban it. He's a very proud player. He doesn't like to back down or try to meta. I mean, it's probably Phantom Dust's most iconic map, except for maybe Sign, due to the story mode. So, it's almost everybody's comfort map. And I don't think he's going to ban it.
Yeah, I could see that read. Goatrix, what do you think? You know these guys. What's going to happen?
I'm going to give it to Bregan 3-1. I just think he's just going to outplay Math. I mean, I think they're both good players, but I just think that with the amount of playing that Bregan does, and just the way he plays and approaches the game, I just think he'll be able to outperform Math. And once again, nothing personal, but I think it's going to be 3-1 or probably the traditional Bregan 3-0.
Maybe. Speaking of 3-0s, Nathan, do you have a prediction for us here? I know you're not the 1v1 master, but you know these players pretty well.
I do, and I actually am going to go against these other guys. I do think that Vito could win this, because when I think of Vito and Matt, to me, the definitive quality of that guy is methodical, right? Like he's I just always have thought of him that way. I've never seen him seeming like he was melting down or on tilt, and I kind of think that really methodical, just a really methodical approach to the game is the key to being an effective 1v1 player. And so I could see him beating Bregan, who I would acknowledge I think is probably clearly I would say the stronger actual player at this point in time. But who was it that Bregan? I did watch a 1v1 series you had against, was it Jusala? Was it his what the heck is it
Esper
called?
51?
Esper? Yeah, right? And didn't he win that?
Yeah, we played on the very
practice round
first
you had
day
up?
of the one. It was the very first day of the 1v1 tournament in the group stage.
Yeah,
I didn't
and
really go in
watching
with any
that-
prep, and I didn't have any 1v1 arsenals, but I wanted to get the
Okay.
ball rolling and kind of show everybody, let's get matches
Sure.
in. You can even play today. So I played him on the very first day.
Gotcha. Okay, so there was some preparation issues there, but that was kind of what I was thinking of. Is that watching him and putting myself in your shoes, since obviously I have videos at your perspective. I was like, man, oh man, he's not leaving opportunities here to do stuff. He wasn't venturing into spots where you could take clear attacks at him. I mean, it wasn't that he was afraid of engaging. It was just that you could see that he knew where to stand. And as we all know, he plays a lot of 1v1. He just had that patience and that kind of methodical approach to the game, and I could see Vito bringing the same type of approach. But that said, I don't know how he'll perform, given the preparation time you've had now, the additional experience you've had playing in 1v1 during the course of this tournament, and also, the awareness that you have that would be, a thing to deal with that methodical approach.
All right, so give us a record. How do you think it's going to turn out?
Oh, I think it goes probably 3-2 in Vito's favor. I think Bregan wins the first two because, again, I believe that much like an eggshell, once the first crack appears, the series is pretty much over. So Bregan will get ahead by 2 wins. He'll be winning something like 18-3 in the third match before Vito comes back, and will never land another point of damage from that.
What do I have to do to convince you guys here? Do I have to
So-
ban Palace myself, let them win the first match, and then win a series 3-1? What do I got to do?
Let me offer my perspective on this, because I love your read, Nathan. Bregan is actually the master of being reverse swept.
What do you mean by that?
Like winning the first 2, then losing out.
Sweep?
So it happened against
okay,
me in tag. It happened against Doom in tag. Went from 2-0 to losing the series in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
But at the same time, while I love it when Bregan gets reverse swept, I have to say these words for the last time I might ever say them. Math loses 0-3 in the semifinals.
The only way if he does, it's because, once again, I think it's that he underestimates jumpers and he thinks he just has that, he has the superior character going into it. And that's how he lost to me 3-0, honestly. I think that he underestimated that he would be able to just cartwheel everything away. He'd be able to hit everything on me. And here's the Xanxus problem. He's a great dodger and a great cartwheeler, except for Jackpot is his enemy.
Oh, man. I feel like I win either way,
There
because
are
I have a
so
meme
many-
for the reverse sweep, and I have a meme for the 0-3 in the semis, so I don't care what happens, I guess. Either one, I'm a
But
winner.
we haven't mentioned it. The end of your series against Xanxus, and I think it was alluded to at one point, was kind of amazing. I mean, the setup that you guys had with Tokyo Magnum. I'm sorry, I totally jumped back to the tag team.
No, it's
thing
okay.
here. The setup that you had in where I guess you just never saw him again, but you guys played in lane, and Tokyo Magnum was like in some remote corner, like he was fine, sending jackpots over as you floated around chasing those guys with what's the name with the
Cluster Bomb.
Bravery Decision Cluster Bomb, and yeah, I thought that was really, really funny, and I kept wondering, like, what are the other two guys running around with that they don't have anything to just knock you out of the air? Like, how has it come to be that they literally just have no response to a guy floating slowly after them, tossing bombs down on them.
I will speak to that a little bit, but I don't want to get too sidetracked. There's actually extreme purposefulness in using Skywalk, in that it doesn't go over most of the buildings. I spent like a week and a half just practicing how to dodge stuff while floating around really slowly. It wasn't easy. It didn't come quick.
Wow, that's filthy. That's a filthy prep technique. I like it.
Well, what's funny still is that it was like, wait, how are you getting hit by the jackpot so much when there are guys who are less experienced cartwheelers who dodge the skill like it's no big deal.
Oh gosh, the rips are.
I mean, I hate to say
We're not being mean. I mean, that's his
Yeah.
weakness. He knows they know it. They have to.
And
at some
they
point, you
haven't
think they would find a way
corrected-
to correct it.
No, but you have to admit, yeah, they did get hit by some random ones, but you have to admit, when you've got a guy floating above you, dropping 6 or 8 point attacks down on you, you just can't focus on them the way you'd like. I mean, we all know the
of
technique
course.
for dodging those holes, but like, it's
They
a
don't.
different animal when you're also deking, major attacks
Well,
from above.
They
The only
also hold
difference-
flash holes a lot, and they never erase it. I mean, there's
Well-
a counter to it right there. Erase it.
Well,
Erase the
let's just be
jackpot.
fair. Like their very first matchup in the tournament, they fought Esper and Evolution, who hit him with Disintegrate, and
Yeah.
I think a couple other people hit him with other holes. I know me and Silent the only reason we won any matches against them is because Silent did like 100 damage to them with Jackpot.
You guys damn near stole the series with Jackpot,
That's
like
true.
exclusively with Jackpot.
I literally almost thought about going and making a Jackpot arsenal, which is like watching it and coming back and just voiding in the face and then just jackpotting the whole time. Because I'm like, what are you gonna do? The answer's nothing. It would have worked.
3 jackpots, 3 relearns, 2 stimulants, Tiger String.
Just go
Yeah.
nuts. Just rub your face across the pad.
I'm sorry, I did not mean to sidetrack us, but when somebody mentioned Jackpot, then it popped into my head and I had to mention that. It's kind of like an amazing sequence.
It's
to
funny
watch.
because Murder hated that idea. He did not want me to play it. He's like, this one looks pretty bad, man. Everything else seems solid, but this one feels bad. And I'm like, no, we're doing this. We're doing it for Silent. We're doing it for Goatrix.
I helped them prep for that. And I played against it. I played a cartwheeler with poor choices against it, and we played like 10, 15 matches on lane against that arsenal. I told Guinan I thought it was a bad idea. I said the same thing.
that
as
was a
Virgil.
great
I was like,
idea.
when it worked, okay, so I think it had like a 40, maybe 50% win rate against me and poor choices and me playing as a cartwheeler. And like,
But your guys'
it's
weakness
hilarious
isn't
when it won. It was
jackpot.
hilarious when it worked. But it was still
Did she-
so risky.
Well, yeah, see, but that's the thing, because that's more of those personalized weaknesses you get to see from all the tournament matches, is that, holy crap, they can't dodge Jackpot, what the hell? I guess I'm going to hit him with it 100 times.
In fairness, we tested
Yeah,
it as an
that-
Earthquake Absorb Energy for a while, but that one was even slower, so we got rid of that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what they did
that's
switch
the
it.
hard thing of you can't always. I mean, you can strategize and plan and do all these practice matches, but sometimes if you don't have people playing exactly the same way as them, which is almost impossible. Like I said, you can't. Bregan's not going to purposely get hit by Jackpot. He knows how to dodge it because he plays as a jumper.
You were going to have to look really hard to find people who couldn't dodge Jackpot.
Ouch, ouch. All right, so we're gonna move on because this is getting a little too far. Don't go too far. All right. So in general, we've got 3 games of 1v1 left. We have me and Esper, Bregan and Math, and then a finals. We hopefully will give you a. We'll come back after that, and after Bregan plays Zexus and Zanxus. Before we go today, I want to have a little bit of talk. This was let me read this one of Bregan's points. We want to talk about who's the top players right now. Like, we've seen a lot of play, battle royale, tag, one-on-one, multiple tournaments. I want to get your reads. Who do you think is the vettiest vet around, as I might have put it? We'll start from Goatrix. Go down here.
First to Goatrix. Maybe he's still muted.
All right. Well,
I had to unmute myself, yeah. So, that's my question, though. Are we talking just all around, just like top tier?
The way I envisioned it when I was making the itinerary is kind of like, who's your top, 3 or 4 players right now, and who kind of tops the table for you?
Well, I'm going to say it's probably the recognizable heads of the 3 tag team tournaments. It's going to be RebornGaignun, and Xanxus in no particular order. Or if we go by Xanxus' old name, Stranger Meteor, since Nathan here likes to throw out old names. Those 3 I think are probably the best right at the moment. And I mean, look, they play all the time. They have no lives. They're all on the verge of divorce because of it. So
My wife is literally in the background with like fan paraphernalia, like rooting for me. I don't know what you're talking about.
My wife isn't glaring at me from the couch, wondering what I'm doing, spending yet another hour sitting on the computer talking to people.
yeah, you can see the sacrifice they've made to become the best of the best.
During that one-on-one game, I actually think I made Xanxus wait to pick up his wife. Sorry, Xanxus' wife. But alright, that's fair. What do you have as a top couple and a top of the... Wait, no, I need top of the table, Goatrix. I need to make a decision.
Oh, you need like a 3-2-1?
I need to just number 1. That's what I need.
Oh, just a number 1.
Gotta get some blood in here.
Okay, Invoker Legends.
Okay. You didn't
No,
even
no,
name him
no.
in his top 3, but it's his top 1. All right.
Yeah, no, exactly. If we're gonna go that far, no. Fine, Guinan, you're the best. There you go.
Guys, this is Reagan's question. It's funny enough because I actually predicted Esper to win the 1v1 tournament, but not to win his group stage. Reagan brought this up before. But, okay, so, Monkey, I want to hear your thoughts on this.
I think it's the same top 3. I mean, you guys are getting the most playtime in. Anytime I look online, you are all... Xanxus is always sitting in Phantom Dust. He's never not sitting in Phantom Dust.
That is somewhat a lie sometimes, for sure.
It's still like a 80-20% of his time is split to Phantom Dust.
I was gonna say his account is in Phantom Dust. Whether he's there or not, I don't care. His account is staying in Phantom Dust like all the
True.
time.
And that still builds him experience.
Mm-hmm.
And you might be the only 3 that maybe aren't. I mean, Bregan and you can speak, I guess, for yourselves, but I don't think you guys are playing any other games. Like, I know myself, I'm playing Assassin's Creed, I'm playing Super Lucky Tales, I'm playing Halo, I'm playing other stuff besides Phantom Dust, and I think you guys are pretty much.
I'm actually
100%
shamelessly
Phantom
playing Battlefront 2 right now.
All right, well there you go.
How many
So,
levels have you
What you're
lost?
saying is you may lose now at the end of the tournament because you're getting too involved in Battlefront.
Because he's buying loot boxes is what
Loot
it
boxes
is.
with all my money. All the loot boxes right now.
Yeah.
I've been playing
But-
Divinity, Original Sin 2. I've been playing a lot of, what do you call them, like the beat-em-up games, like old Gauntlet type games. But I've been playing
Oh,
like
that's
Castle
good.
Crashers, some of the
Oh,
Lord of the
so like-
Rings games on Xbox.
Well, then
Yeah,
you
I know
guys
what you're
do
talking
obviously have no lives because I barely have time to play video games, take care of kids, do
know-
homework, do school.
You
or
know, the
do
funny
work.
thing is-
I play those with my wife.
Yeah. A funny thing is, if I want to give credit to anyone, I get to play more than Murder. Because, like, I'll play, and I have a second account with Silly Arsenals, and that's what I'm usually on. It's still, practice and such. But for tag prep,
That's dedication.
right, for tag prep, it's like, Murder gets on 20 minutes a day, at max. Like, that's on a good day. Like, I swear, this man is too busy. So, the fact that he can keep up, like, we should get some credit.
Yeah.
Yeah, on a related note,
I'm not saying he's a
noting
bad
that-
player, but you guys are the top 3. And Gaignun, I think you've proven in the tournaments, and I think you've proven in casual play that right now, no one is building arsenals as good as you. No one is building counter arsenals as good as you. No one is dodging as well as you. No one's bringing the whole package together as well as you are right now in FanDust. You're obviously the top player right now. You've
Got a
spent a
big
lot of time
package.
to become the top player. Oh yeah, shut up. And like I said, I think right now it's if anyone's playing you one-on-one, it's hard to beat you. if anyone's playing you, especially if you're planning for that person, it's right now, like I said, you're probably the top player.
All right, Nathan, let's get your input real quick.
Well, yeah, I mean, right off the bat, you're probably the best. But I would like to add in as a close number 2, PDDCM. And here's why. That dude has dragged an absolute carcass of a teammate all the way through the semifinals of the tag team tournament. And I think that deserves commendation and recognition as probably clearly set as the number 2 player in the game. And I don't think he entered the 1v1 tournament, right?
No.
No.
Yeah, he probably wins that.
I love it.
He loses all of our 1v1s when we warm up for our tag matches.
All right. So I like these ones, but those
No,
are
he
too
doesn't.
easy. I
I'm
want
just kidding.
a number 4 because I really want to put some effort in this. Who's a number 4, Nathan?
Who's the number 4 player?
Yeah.
Well,
He never gave
all
us a
right,
number
so-
3.
He just said he
PDDCM.
agreed. It was easy out.
Yeah. I mean, Xanxus clearly then. I mean, because again, the Xanxus Gagnon series was virtually a draw. I mean, like that series, I feel like I could have watched that series 10 times and seen 5 games in each direction each time. You know what I mean? Like, I really, that was a very, very close series. And I think that after that, boy,
Well,
yeah, I mean, and then Bregan probably would be the other one. But again, I think it's hard to see. Again, I'm judging almost entirely from tag team. And from recordings and from my own experience. I still find like when he gets on Doom to be a pretty wicked opponent. And I think, like we've been saying, I think it's really difficult to gauge where he is right now. Because he didn't sync up and have much opportunity to practice with his partner for this. And so we don't know, what the situation with Doom is if he's got someone who's a little more. And again, I've always thought that he plays particularly well with a player like Ghost, who's willing to take more of a supporting role, because it allows him to just be like hyper aggressive, which is where I think he's at his best. But yeah, I don't know. I think it gets a little muddier after the top 3 or so.
Well, I was going to say, I would like to just talk about Doom since you already brought him up. That was who I was surprised that I hadn't heard from anybody yet. And I think it's a real shame we didn't get to see him, get a little bit deeper in the tag tournament because he had some cohesion issues with Ronan. And we haven't gotten to see him in the 1v1 tournament either. I wish he'd come to that. But when it comes to me, when I play against any player, like really the only player that I feel overmatched against or I feel like I'm at a disadvantage against, where I feel like I can't go 50% or better, is Doomsday. Like, he feels completely overwhelming at times, and then other times I can go close to 50-50. But for me, he's still absolutely, in my opinion, the best player in the game.
he's still really good. It's just that he's just not as visible anymore, which it's kind of hard to talk about him. It's just he doesn't show up very much, just in random tag rooms anymore. And even then, since he had a less than perfect performance in the tournament, it's kind of easy to kind of write him off as kind of washed up, even though he's not. Come next tournament, whenever that may be, maybe he'll have a stronger performance and people will be talking about him nonstop again. But just for now, he's kind of get yesterday's news.
I have actually a thought on that. So Doom doesn't really like one-on-one, right? Like, he's never participated in one-on-one, I don't think, tournaments. Is that correct?
Mm-mm.
So he's a
Not that I
tag
know
player
of.
at his heart. And because of that, I can't tell you how he'd 1v1 me or Xanxus or Esper or Bregan. But, Bregan would tilt, obviously, right? No.
Thank you.
Well, you just said that you feel undermatched. I wasn't trying to dig.
He's my white whale, so maybe I'm biased, but I've said that before in these podcasts that he's the guy that I've never been able to take down.
So when it comes to tag, though, I want to note that tag isn't just about a player. Tag is your synergy. Tag is your partner. And so, regardless of who that is and whether you think it's good or not, Doom can't be the top tag player unless he has a partner that he has synergy with. And he's got to build that. I think he has the potential, but potential has to be used. So, I'd love to have a world where I call him my number 1 player, but I don't think it's right now. I don't think he has synergy with anyone strong enough to be that.
It's a fair point.
Bregan, did you have any more topics you want to talk about? I think we got through most of the itinerary here.
No, I believe that covers just about everything there. Yeah, does anybody have any final thoughts or anything they'd like to add either about the 1v1 or the tag tournament, meta discussions, developments, surprises?
Will
I
the
don't know, I
tag
think we
team
hit all the notes
tournament I don't know. I was going to add, will the tag team tournament last into 2018?
I'm
It started in August.
gonna speak on that a little bit.
I
if you
know.
don't mind. I'm looking forward in this, and I know all the teams involved, and we're all communicating pretty well. I'm pretty sure that this next one, this current round, which is 2 semifinals in the 1v1 and 1 tag tournament game in the losers bracket, I'm picturing that that's going to take a little bit after Thanksgiving because of the holiday. But then we'll have one more round after that, and I could see the week before Christmas is probably done, even if we end up going 2 rounds in the grand finals. That's where I would tell people to look.
Yeah.
Why do I want to say that won't be the case? Because I bet there's going to be availability issues, not necessarily on your side, but elsewhere, because it's the holidays. For some people, December rolls around, their month is gone.
Well, Zanks has said in our game that he has no family, so there's that. He did say this. I don't think it's true.
Zexus doesn't exist.
Nor does Crow Marlin.
Or his wife. Who
Well, let's be
gave him
fair.
up to
Crow
us.
Marlin really doesn't exist.
Oh, it's true. He has a new name. All right. With that, I think we've had enough shenanigans. I'm going to call it. Thanks for watching. Look for these 3 games in the current tournament, and then another little recap before our finals in 2 tournaments. Thanks for watching, guys.